Hey everyone, it's Anthony here, just with a very quick note before we get started. Just a reminder that we now have a Discord server so that you can interact with us directly. The invite link is in the show blurb, so go and take a look at that, click on it, come and join us on Discord, join the chat. Enjoy the episode on Time Flight. Watchers in the fourth dimension.
Knocked back into time-space like a straight 6 into the pavilion.
If you advance, you will kill me, mister.
Hello and welcome to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension. I'm Anthony.
I'm Diana.
I'm Julie.
And I'm Reilly, and Shadwa, Shara, Shaba, Shara.
Oh boy. Well, this episode, we've got one of the Master's slightly more insane plans as we discuss time flight. But before we get into that, Diana's going to take a quick look at the mail. Over to you, Diana.
Thank you. So I'm looking at the mail from the visitation, and starting off over on Facebook, we got a message from David Patty that said, fun podcast, which is good. Simple script done well. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it rattles along. In terms of the main plot, there is nothing to cut. However, we've still got the companion problem. Too many people in the TARDIS, too many people in the story. And again, it's Nyssa that loses out. At least this time she achieved something, but Sarah Sutton must have felt a bit sick at the read-through, finding out she spends the episode basically dragging things from one side of the TARDIS to the other. Still, the pterodactyls are convincing, and the cyber boogie disco robot is great to look at. And Mace is excellent. And yes, to Matt Berry in the TARDIS, especially if you play someone like What We Do in the Shadows as Laszlo. I just want to hear him telling the Dalek Supreme that now he goes by the name of Jackie Daytona. Overall, 7.5. I hope you like your puddings burnt out of 10. Oh, and by the way, as chairs were mentioned in the podcast, I don't know why, but this turned up on his social media feeds, and he has sent us very kindly a link to the Chairs of British Telefantasy, which looks fabulous, honestly.
Outstanding.
I love that site.
I mean, that's the way to Julie's heart, is to talk about chairs.
Really, really is.
Now, David Gorton commented, so after a somewhat unusual Kinda, we are back to a more straightforward action-adventure romp, which, as has been stated elsewhere, has more than one nod to the Time Warrior. Michael Robbins is indeed supreme. I seem to recall back in the day, he won either the DWAS or the DWM award for the best guest character for Series 19 by a country mile. And in my headcanon, he definitely survives the fire, which was a repeated comment. A lot of running around from place to place, but there is enough here to be solidly entertaining, giving the 7.5 Miller's horses out of 10. R.L. Gray said, glad that you had some fun with this one. Sound like you were deuced for some. Regarding the design of the pterodactyls, although I've never seen it specifically stated, it sure seems like one inspiration was the sea bishop or bishop fish, a cryptid that from roughly the time period of this story. The drawing in the reference article is dated 1696, 30 years after the story, which is a cool touch because the bishop fish is interesting. Also, I don't recall exactly, but did they just leave the pterodactyl pod behind? I'm sure we'll have a field day with that in some 200-odd years.
Oh, God.
And then we have Keith Burton, who goes on to praise Michael Robbins. And he says, like William Hartnell, he often specialized in tough guy roles as Cockney criminals or police officers. He was also in a big comedy series called On the Buses in the 70s, playing another gruff and sarcastic character. Conversely, in his private life, he was genuinely kind and quiet man who once received an award from the Catholic Church for his tireless charity work. He was obviously relishing the chance to play something different as the cowardly thespian Richard Mace, and it works beautifully. Agreed. But last two, R.L. Gray and Keith Burton, no scores. Boo.
Come on, guys.
Kieran James Evans turns it around. It's a decent story. Richard Mace definitely adds some much-needed humor. Without him, it is rather dry. The film sequences do look very nice on Blu-ray, as these are new transfers from original negatives. The DVD was a new transfer from the transmission print. The story is still suffering from not enough story to give to all the TARDIS crew. Well, things will soon change on that. Anyway, it gets 7 melted baddies out of 10. All right. And then over on Insta, Austin D. Patterson said, if y'all are doing shirts, I need one that's a list of Julie's crushes that says Jamie and Benton and Baby Benton and Davy Jones and Eric Lindros and Harry, but Harry's name is crossed out.
You remember my crushes that weren't even Doctor Who related. I'm impressed, or should I be weirded out? I'm going to stop now.
I don't think you need to be worried about Austin stalking you. I'm not sure you're his type, Julie.
And another reiteration from Ben Flay Designs. The actor Michael Robbins did a brilliant run. He's a famous comedian for On the Buses. And also the owner of the house appeared on Coronation Street. And how many times is the Doctor responsible for the Great Fire? And gives it 3 out of 5 bejeweled androids. And that is the comments we got this time.
Thank you for that, Diana. And as a reminder to our listeners, we really do love getting your feedback, thoughts, comments, and questions. And as you've just heard, we do try to read out as many of them as possible on the show. So please do get in touch. You can contact us through Facebook and Instagram at Watchers4D, or you can email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. Additionally, we would absolutely love it if you subscribe to the podcast, if you're not doing so already, and if you dropped us a review or rating on your podcast platform of choice. Anyway, let's head behind the scenes on Time Flight. Writer Peter Grimwade had been involved with the show ever since Season 7's Spearhead from Space back in 1970, on which he had worked as a production assistant. He continued to work behind the scenes, eventually becoming a director, but he had also started working on his own story ideas for the show. One proposal concerned an evil force which took control of a rogue element amongst an alien species. It was submitted to script editor Douglas Adams in 1979, but was rejected. In 1980, Grimwade resubmitted the concept to Adams' successor, Christopher H. Bidmead, who felt that it was worth pursuing. Bidmead and Grimwade started talking more. During an errand at London's Heathrow Airport during one of their meetings, the involvement of Concorde was inspired. It was, of course, the world's first commercial supersonic aircraft, and at this point it had only been in service for 4 years. Bidmead felt that its inclusion would help ground the fantastical plot in reality. By March 1980, Grimwade was commissioned to produce a storyline under the title Xanadin, a name which had been conceived by Grimwade, Bidmead, and producer John Nathan Turner to be intentionally bizarre. The production team liked this style of title, which they felt was far more intriguing for viewers than the standard Doctor Who approach, which I think, as we all know up until this point, had been the blank of blank approach. Grimwade worked quickly on his outline, and consideration was given to positioning the story, now renamed Xeraphin, as the final adventure of Doctor Who's 18th season. Around this time, however, Nathan Turner hired Grimwade to direct Full Circle, which meant delaying work on Xeraphin. It was subsequently agreed that Grimwade would revisit his adventure at the end of the summer, after completing Full Circle and before directing the eventual Season 18 finale, Logopolis. And the view was to make Xeraphin part of the show's 19th season at this point. The postponement of Xeraphin had some benefits. It gave Nathan Turner more time to negotiate access to Heathrow, as well as to a British Airways Concorde for filming, both of which were firsts for television drama. And they were a bit sneaky. They sort of insinuated that they were also in discussions with Air France for similar accommodations with their Concorde. They actually weren't, but British Airways didn't need to know that. And Nathan Turner scored a major coup when he was able to obtain the necessary permissions. This came as a surprise to David Reed, the new head of series and serials, after he warned Nathan Turner about the unfeasibility of a Doctor Who story based around Concorde. As 1980 moved along, it became clear that Grimwade would have to make several changes to his storyline. Tom Baker had now decided to leave Doctor Who, and so Xeraphin would feature a very different TARDIS crew. In addition, Nathan Turner and Bidmead had reintroduced the Doctor's Time Lord arch-nemesis, the Master, and the producer was eager to feature the character in 2 stories every year. It was planned that the Master would appear in Season 19's debut serial, eventually Castrovalva, and Nathan Turner asked Grimwade to incorporate the character into Xeraphin as well. With the storyline duly amended, Grimwade was formally commissioned to script his adventure in mid-September 1981, and the contract was issued under the title Xanadin, but they quickly reverted back to Xeraphin again. Xanadin, Xeraphin, same diff. More alterations became necessary during 1981. It had been decided that Adric would be dropped as a companion in the story preceding Xeraphin, sorry Diana, and so he would have to be removed from the action. Furthermore, since Xeraphin was now intended to be the last serial of Season 19, Nathan Turner wanted to end the year on a moment of surprise, akin to the Doctor's regeneration in Logopolis, and it was agreed that the story should culminate in Tegan's apparent abandonment as the Doctor and Nyssa departed in the TARDIS. However, and I apologise for the spoilers here, there were no actual plans to write Janet Fielding out of Doctor Who, but this gave them the flexibility to change their mind about retaining Tegan if necessary. And meanwhile, new script editor Eric Saywood, now actually on the show full-time, felt that the Master had worn out his welcome, and he had the idea of killing him off in Xeraphin. but Nathan Turner was adamant that he wanted the Master to be a recurring foe for the foreseeable future. At one point, Grimwade had hoped to direct his own scripts, but this was made impossible when he was assigned to Earthshock, the immediate previous serial in production. Over the summer, Andrew Morgan was instead recruited for Xeraphin, but he was unimpressed with Grimwade's scripts and was then offered another opportunity that he found more exciting outside of the show. So he turned down the Doctor Who job at the last minute, but fear not, for those who actually care about this particular saga, he would eventually make his debut with season 24's Time and the Rani in 1987. But left with very little time to find a replacement, Nathan Turner turned to Ron Jones, a relatively new director who was just completing Black Orchid, and Jones agreed to move straight on to Xeraphin. Joining Jones's behind-the-scenes team, we have Liz Mace making her only contribution to the show as production manager. She's also known for her work in that same role on both Juliet Bravo and EastEnders. As designer, we have the contribution of Richard McMahon-Smith, who had previously worked on season 16's The Armageddon Factor and season 17's City of Death. As costumer, we have the return of Amy Roberts for the fifth and final time. She had, of course, previously worked on season 15's Image of the Fendal, as well as Full Circle, State of Decay, and The Keeper of Traken, all from season 18. And last but not least, as composer, we have the return of Roger Lim, returning to the show for the fourth time, having previously handled season 18's The Keeper of Traken, as well as Four to Doomsday and Black Orchid from earlier in season 19. In front of the camera, Anthony Ainley was contracted to play the Master at the beginning of October 1981. It was agreed that he would be credited as Leon Naite, which is an anagram of Tony Ainley at the end of episode 1, to really keep Khalid's unmasking in the second part a surprise. It was also observed that Adric's death at the climax of Earthshock might be spoiled if advanced cast listings for the season finale omitted Matthew Waterhouse's name, and so a brief appearance by an illusory Adric was included in part 2. And in mid-December, the story was renamed Time Flight. Other options such as Flight into Time had also been considered, and talk about mundane, guys, there was some discussion as to whether or not Time Flight should actually be hyphenated.
I can't.
Location filming happened at Heathrow and was relatively hitch-free, but by the time studio filming began, there was considerable unhappiness around the Plasmaton costumes, which had been constructed by the freelance firm Imagineering, who we've heard about several times recently. The intent had been to create something inhuman, but insufficient thought had been given to the eyesight of those wearing the outfits. And so, unable to see, the Plasmaton performers had to remain virtually immobile and were scarcely able to generate any sort of a sense of menace. Meanwhile, it had also been discovered that the script for Part 3 was drastically short, and at the end of January 1982, Saywood asked Grimwade to develop a further 7 minutes of action. Later that week, Grimwade provided various new and extended scenes, including more material involving Bilton and Stapley spying on the Master and later trying to pilot the TARDIS, and additional exposition about the Xeraphin. The transmission of Time Flight, Episode 4, brought Doctor Who's 19th season to a close on March the 30th. The next show to occupy the Monday and Tuesday time slots on a regular basis was another twice-weekly series, the soap opera Triangle, which was starting its second season. So that wraps up our behind-the-scenes content, so we move on to our short summary, which is with Julie this episode. Over to you, Julie.
Thanks, Anthony. Hello, my name is Julie, and I'll be your flight attendant today. Please secure your safety belt, as we may be experiencing rough air or a time warp during our trip through time flight. First, we may find that our first of 2 Concorde planes disappears without a trace, completely to the bafflement of our ground crew. We also take a few minutes to mourn our newly deceased companion before truly beginning our journey. As the Doctor takes us millions of years in the past, we'll discover our first clue as to who our villain is based on an obvious use of mind control to influence both crew and passengers of our Concorde flights. Only Nis and our professor have a true wherewithal to combat it until the Doctor catches on and helps the others. I would also caution everyone from getting too close to the lumpy gray creatures, as they do something to everyone they get near. Unfortunately, I must simply ask that you listen to all of the Doctor's instructions and hope that the Xeraphins get their shit together, as there is not much else our crew can truly do to help. Luckily, we have only one confirmed death, as the Professor accepts fate simply on the logic that he gets to learn everything. At the end of our journey, the Master gets thwarted again, as we always knew he would be, and poor Tegan has been left behind where she has been trying to get to since first jumping on the TARDIS, Heathrow Airport. Thank you for flying Watchers 48 Airways.
Outstanding. Thank you, Julie. All right, let's jump straight in. Part 1. We start with Concorde.
Oh, yeah. You know, it's funny. I don't know if it carried over into the 90s, but if you grew up in the 80s, if you were a child of the 80s, the Concorde was really promoted as this amazing, wonderful thing. The PR for this plane just carried over to America, and it was just constantly being promoted as the coolest thing possible. So I guess that is kind of what we have here in this episode, is the beginnings of, or maybe the high point of the, I guess, Concorde mania.
Certainly growing up in Britain, there was still a lot of awe around Concorde, even up to the final flight when they were all grounded and eventually retired. Maybe part of that is because I lived directly under the Concorde flight path in London, but certainly me and all my friends were a little bit obsessed with Concorde in the 90s.
Oh, okay. So it did carry on for a while.
It did. I can say that I had heard of the Concorde before. I knew of its existence, and I knew of some of the groundbreaking things that it had done. So, yes, it was something that they still talked about.
I'm still pissed I never got to fly on a Concorde.
Yeah, same.
And we have everybody dealing with the horrible loss at the end of the previous serial. And I'm a little frustrated by the fact that both Tegan and Nyssa are now dressed back into their normal costumes.
Same.
I was so disappointed that Tegan got out of that jumpsuit.
It's just not good. I mean, I understand that that was something that Anthony had mentioned a while back, that the producers wanted to have a consistent look for all the characters, make them highly identifiable. And I can agree with that in regards to the Doctor. I like my companions to be able to wear something else.
The only reason why it works for Tegan with her flight attendant suit is because they actually make it to Heathrow.
Yeah.
And it plays a tiniest bit of plot point, but I do enjoy that aspect of it where they're like, oh, she's just a flight attendant. Well, no, she's not, but okay, yes.
I like how she just goes with it, too. They're like, you're a flight attendant. She's like, yep.
Minor spoiler, when she returns, she gets a new costume.
Good. Now, did everyone else get kind of, I know I did, I guess, shocked when they get to Heathrow and her first reaction is, thank God I'm out of here. See you later. No, it's, oh man, I wanted to go to the Crystal Palace.
Well, to be fair, she had said previously that she was finally happy to travel with the Doctor and was in no rush to get back there. So I think it's all come round quite well for her at this point, and she doesn't really want to leave. That said, I do want to talk about how Tegan's upset about Adric's death. Nyssa's kind of upset. The Doctor gets pissed, says he can't break the rules to go and rescue Adric, and then says, right, let's go to 1851 London. Cheer you all right up after your friends just died.
I mean, that's classic Doctor, though.
Yes.
Yeah, emotionally unavailable.
We've talked about this before. Our TARDIS crew is, again, emotionally unstable, and they don't deal with things as they properly should. Obviously, Nyssa, being the human of them all, is going to have the most normal reaction in our opinion, right? And they do that on purpose. But I do enjoy getting at least some of that time in getting that little bit. And then even some of the callback in part 2 is nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I had to note is I was like, oh my gosh, we are actually in Heathrow Airport because I recognize those yellow signs.
Yeah. But you know what's changed massively between 1981 and 1982 and now? The decor of the airport is so much less brown now.
I mean, it was the 80s. Everyone thinks that the 80s was bright colors, but the 80s were brown.
Yeah, those browns and beiges were fucking killing me.
I appreciate older stories set in airports because I find airports fascinating places. And so it's always good to see just that old style and the fact that you used to fly nice.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, you say that you used to be able to fly nice, but obviously those guys on the Concorde were the rich people, as they like to point out.
When you were telling us that they wanted to bring in the Concorde to make it relatable, I was like, to who?
Less relatable, more, hey, here's the new big, giant, shiny thing, and we're going to be able to film it.
Right. Right.
Also, not surprising to me at all that the UK decided that they wanted to one-up France, because obviously, one-up France if you can.
I mean, that's our entire reason for existence. If we're not going to slap down the French at every possible opportunity, are you even British?
Well, can we also call out the other thing of name-dropping Lethbridge Stewart?
Oh, yeah.
And contact unit department C19. It's actually a really smart thing to do because it's the right time zone. and it basically gets them an access all areas pass. I can't believe that the Doctor doesn't do that more often. Imagine if he'd done that at the radio in Logopolis.
Right.
Just make life so much easier.
I was a little sad that we couldn't get an actual voiceover of Lethbridge Stewart, but it's okay. But they do mention Sir John, and we've talked about Sir John before, I believe.
Have we?
It rang a bell to me, because I think, sometimes the Brigadier would be talking to people.
Normally be talking to some nameless person in Geneva.
That's true. I don't know. It rang a bell. Maybe I'm just crazy.
No comment.
I know, because it's true.
We kind of jumped onto the Concorde and we jumped to the airport. We have to talk about what happened. The Concorde, or one of them, is missing. And so now we have our plot moving forward. Now the Doctor has avoided being arrested because of his connections with UNIT. And now he's running the show because of his connections with UNIT. And the idea is to put the TARDIS in another Concorde, and for that Concorde to fly the same flight path to see if that perhaps they can figure out what happened. And what I do enjoy about this, one, I think the idea of the TARDIS, which is something that easily can be transported anywhere, it's funny to see the TARDIS being transported somewhere by itself. And then on top of that, I really did like the effect, which is something that I thought I would only see in New Who, is the TARDIS being laid on its side and then the Doctor kind of jumping into it from above and then having to adjust something with the console in order to get it to rotate.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great little bit.
I love a good sideways TARDIS scene.
I also really like that the airport boss, I think his name's Shard, the guy with the moustache, he is horrified at using another Concorde. I mean, think of the cost.
Right?
I think that's just brilliant and exactly what would happen in real life. It was like, really, do we really want to lose tens of millions of pounds of another aircraft? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't think that if it was real life, anybody would ever clear that. They'd be like, well, we need to go send in a different kind of plane.
Or they say, we're not doing that flight path again. We're just going to go maybe a mile around that area.
Yeah, why don't we go have a look first?
Yeah, and just ignore the probably millions of dollars worth of people who just disappeared.
Right. It's a classic science fiction concept, the idea of a plane in flight disappearing or being transported back in time or into another dimension. I think of obviously a very famous classic Twilight Zone episode where they go back in time. And I believe when we follow the same flight path as the first Concorde that went missing in this serial, when they also get transported back, they mention it was the Jurassic period. And I believe that is exactly what it was in the Twilight Zone episode, but they never landed. They just kind of flew around and saw a lot of claymation dinosaurs, which is pretty good effect for 1960 or 1961 television. And then I also think of, there was a Stephen King miniseries on ABC called The Langoliers about a plane that disappears, or was the passengers disappear on a flight while it was in the air, and they end up being in another dimension. So this is classic sci-fi premise right here. It's just a matter of where do we go from there? What's the mystery we're trying to continue? And that's when we start to get, I guess is where we get our master, but not Master Khalid shows up.
Very quickly, the Twilight Zone episode you're talking about, Reilly, I think was the Odyssey of Flight 33.
That's it. Yep.
And I hate to be that well, actually, guy, but they end up in the Pleistocene era in this. Where
I thought they said Jurassic. Oh, could have sworn they...
I think it may have been referenced, but eventually he says that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
In this episode, well, actually, it is leading up to the Pleistocene. That's why it's so cold.
Oh, leading up to...
He's like, we landed in the Jurassic, and based on the chill in the air, the Pleistocene's not far off.
So Reilly and I are both right. Well,
Wait,
Riley's more right.
No, Riley's more right.
Riley's more right.
I'm trying to save face here, guys. Let me have just an inch, please.
Yeah, I would say...
Counselor, please. Exhibit A. Transcript. Doctor. Definitely Jurassic.
I think it's just that Riley's right and Anthony's wrong.
That's me put in my place, isn't it? But it does lead to the Doctor saying he wishes he still had his scarf.
Yes.
That was cute, yeah. I said, I wish you did too.
Let's talk about Khalid.
Oh, please, let's not.
DJ Khalid.
The biggest question I have is why?
Oh, God, yeah. There's a lot wrong with that whole thing.
I don't think the Master's plan actually involved the Doctor showing up. So why did he disguise himself at all?
Good question. Very good question.
Like, it makes no sense.
Is it problematic? Because it felt very problematic to me.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
The costume itself and the facial hair gave some Talons vibes.
Yes.
Except he's blue.
Right. Except he's blue, and the mystical magician nonsense words you're saying with like the voiceover.
It's very Arabian Nights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all over the place.
That he learned off like a traveling magician when he visited Arabia. And the fact that the Doctor did not question that this man had visited Arabia back in the Jurassic.
My favorite is when he makes a reference to Lucifer. Like,
Yes.
are we just
Oh, yeah.
accepting that he's a time traveler? Because Lucifer, sorry, God botherers, but Lucifer is quite clearly a human concept.
Not God botherers.
But there was never questions as to why any of this was going on. And it rubbed me off the very wrong way. I did not like it. And then because of that, and because I could in some ways see past all the makeup, and I was like, oh no, it's him again.
Oh, you did that? Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask when everyone else noticed. Because to me, it was painfully obvious, but I already knew, so I sort of knew what to look for.
I think the voice effect kind of threw me.
I know we do mind control all the time, and we just recently had mind control that wasn't the Master, but this one felt more like it. And that's really what threw me off. I was just like, something doesn't seem right here. Oh, wait, a whole bunch of people doing someone's bidding. Who does that?
I did not pick up on that at all. I think it was only until Khalid got hit with an excessive dose of Mucinex did I...
No.
We'll come back to that.
No.
Yeah.
Can we? Absolutely not.
But I mean, before we move on from actually the concept of the character Khalid, I definitely agree with Anthony on that. It makes zero sense why he is attempting to disguise himself. No human being knows who the hell he is other than maybe someone from UNIT, which, I mean, who knows? Maybe a person from UNIT would be flying the Concorde. That's possible, but I don't think the Master would have considered that as much of a threat. But it's funny how, as we discuss, the design of the character, the voice, what he says, the costumes, the facial hair, it's like a George Lucas-like mishmash of a wide range of racial stereotypes to create like a prequel character. It's really disturbing. And I'll say this right now, I did not want the Master to show up. I've been disappointed with this Master for a while, and I wanted to see where Khalid was going. Like, I wanted more Khalid backstory. Give me more Khalid, please.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Absolutely
Reilly, but
not.
Khalid's just the Master, so there is no backstory.
It would have been interesting. Now, we do get a Khalid death scene, so to speak, and we'll talk about it when it comes up.
Before we get to the end of this episode, the plasmatons.
Oh, God. They're bad.
The scrubbing bubbles.
They're very box of delights.
Yeah.
Particularly that weird smoky effect that accompanies them. And then you have Roger Lim's music, given that he was the composer for the Box of Delights as well. I was like, ooh.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's some trauma for you guys.
It's just, like you mentioned already, Anthony, because of how they were designed, they barely moved. They were non-threatening at all. And then soap bubbles? Why soap bubbles?
Yeah, it's certainly one of the weirder ideas.
Yeah, I thought they looked like a piece of old chewing gum.
Yeah, they did.
I like a few things that are like plotted out that get tied back into, like the Indian rope trick. We get that explanation to Nyssa, and then it's then used in the next part to trigger their minds again. And I really like that. That I think is clever, because obviously this whole like having to figure out what's real and what's not and all that kind of stuff. I just thought that was a kind of cute little thing that they were doing. And also just teaching Nyssa Earth things is always kind of fun. And at this point, because you don't know what's going on, the whole what's happening with Nyssa, I was like, what are we doing now? Nyssa has like new powers all of a sudden. And it gets explained later. And I feel more okay with it. But for a little while, I was just like, girl, what's going on? I don't understand. I have no idea what's going on.
Yep, I think that's valid. Anyway, we end the episode with the Doctor being taken by the plasmatons. That's our cliffhanger. And we're on to part 2. And I'm still amused by Khalid as being credited as being played by Leon Naite.
Did you see the look that Khalid gave the pilots when they arrived? Because really creeped me out.
Oh, he was horny for them.
Oh, I mean, they're not unattractive pilot guys, right? You know, they're nice and tall and everything. I love Stapley. Stapley's great. Love him. He should be coming back because he's wonderful. But I need to take a shower now.
What can I say? The master just wants to kiss everybody, not just the doctor.
I think he wants to do more than kiss.
Yeah, well...
He wants to tie them up in his bondage web like he did with Adric.
A little bit of mucus in there, yeah.
Oh, God.
Master's dream.
Oh, God.
Well,
That was...
and then he kissed the TARDIS?
Yeah.
Oh.
He got that kiss. He kissed.
Oh, boy.
Okay, let's try to get on track.
We talked about some of our side characters, and we've had an introduction of our captains, our flight crew. Professor Hader shows up. We get an introduction of him from the University of Darlington. And when he showed up, he felt like he was going to be the classic kind of voice for the rest of the people in peril character that happens often in Doctor Who, but he can still chip in. I didn't expect for him to go the way that he did, but I thought he was straightforward, classic, old, academic type, charming character that the show usually provides to us.
I really liked the touch for him that because of the time period he was from, that he was convinced everything was Russian.
Yes.
That he was like, well, we're behind the Iron Curtain, right? And this is all ultrasonic hallucinational tactics from the KGB, correct?
He's just bonkers.
I loved him. I thought he was epic.
He went back and forth. There were a few instances where I'm just like, your rich person is showing.
Mm-hmm.
Which is understandable. I understand that that's the kind of cast of characters that they were all coming from. But every once in a while, when it's the bunch of rich people, it just is like, I don't really care what happens to all you rich people.
What kind of professor is he that he can afford a flight on the Concorde?
Maybe he's doing some side work and has a super rich client.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's around here that don't we get Nyssa starting to become possessed? Or is that a little bit later?
Yes,
No, it's here.
It's here. And this is when I start just being like, okay, it's not just Nyssa having new super nice powers or anything like that. She's being possessed. And I'm like, okay, we're going a step above mind control to possession. That's an interesting choice. I like what they did with her voice. I thought that was fun. But my favorite thing that happened was when they were deciding to split up, and Tegan, understanding where she's most useful, is like, yeah, doctor, I'm not a help to you. So I'm going to stay here with Nyssa. And I'm like, girl, you understand yourself. Because you know what happened in the last story when she went to try to be helpful. And then she's like, yeah, no, I'm not good at this fighting thing. So I'm going to stay where I'm not going to be fighting anything. Go Tegan.
Yeah, she's not getting into those overalls again. Yeah, I mean, this is an episode I sort of struggled with, I think, part 2. It's a lot of hypnosis / mind control, a lot of trying to break into the sanctum. I think the part for me I liked the best was when Tegan and Nyssa are going through those hallucinations.
Yes.
Yes.
That was very strong. Did not expect to see Adric there.
Yeah. And I loved how Nyssa was the one who noticed that he was wearing his badge. And so she knew it was an illusion. That was good.
And it was a bit brutal, honestly, in a scene like that, which is a classic type of scene with a hallucination that's used to ward somebody off. The threat of him saying, if you go any further, they'll kill me. And when they push through, and other times you see that, it's like, see, you walk through the hallucination and it just dissipates. But there they do that, and he still screams in agony afterwards. I'm like, good Lord, that's rough.
And it's been like 12 hours since he died.
No, it's... Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that was a strong emotional note for this serial. Probably, unfortunately, for the serial, that was the strongest emotional note.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Nyssa comes face to face with Melka.
Yeah.
Then they come face to face with a pterodactyl, and they take those challenges like a champ.
So good. I really enjoyed that part. Getting to the center, right? It's like, we have to get to the center. I'm like, well, first off, the center of what? And okay, we figure it out, but we always cut back and forth, right?
It's a nice little spa room. That's what's in the center.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And then Nyssa, being the badass that she is, when she's given the chance, destroys, but not really destroys something.
She throws a thing at a thing.
Yes.
And stops Khalid's monster.
Oh, you mean the really weird, bad snake monster thingies?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
That's very Harryhausen, I think.
I really liked those things. They were disturbing looking.
Yeah, they're not bad for the time.
I think it looked too similar to the astral stuff where they looked too see-through. And so it didn't really seem like a huge threat to me because they didn't look solid enough. And then the really, really, really gross snot.
Yay!
Yeah.
What even?
It serves no purpose.
No purpose. And again, look, I know that I like imagining the master doing things off screen, not just kissing people, I promise. But I enjoy the concept of him putting together that horrifically racist outfit and then putting in the mucus tubes.
Right.
To be like, just in case somebody tries to off me, I'm going to pretend like I died.
Right. It's just, you're right. I just imagine this whole process. He's got to fill the fake bladder of the green goo, put it next to himself. So then when he's right on the ground, he squeezes on it with his inside of his arm. So he just really likes to play dress up.
He really does.
I mean, if anyone is going to win a cosplay contest, it's the master.
Again, to me, the whole costume for this just makes no sense, and yet I still kind of love it. Like, from a narrative perspective, there's no reason for it.
Right. I mean, that's what I was saying. I enjoyed Khalid because of how ridiculous he looked and sounded. I would have preferred, even if I didn't get a Khalid backstory, I would have preferred just that character carrying through and then the master, because I got to tell you, I am really tired of the master. I am tired of the master.
Tell me how you really feel, Reilly.
Yeah. And now that I hear the behind the scenes that Anthony mentioned earlier, that I get to have him sprinkled all over for the future is really exciting to me.
Yay!
Yay! I can't wait to see what new costumes and disguises he has.
Well, the reveal of the Master is our cliffhanger at the end of part 2, so let's move on to part 3.
And it's here that I notice we are starting to get a lot of I will explain laters.
Yeah.
We get 2 of them here.
Many.
We get 2 more in part 4. And that was me just taking a lazy count. I might be missing a couple more.
There's one where I'm questioning, but we'll get there when we get there. We're not there yet.
I counted 4 in total.
I have a 5th to contend, but we will get there.
Okay. And this is where Anthony was talking about how in part 2, it drags. And I think the reason why part 2 drags is that we don't have any spurring action. It's literally people trying to get to places so action can take place. And that takes the entire episode. Part 3 also drags a bit after the reveal of the Master, because once we have an idea of that the Master's here and what he wants to do and what he needs, it then turns into a version of, this is TARDIS talk with your host, the Master. We'll be taking your calls about how to fix the mechanical issues with your TARDIS.
Yeah, part 4 does just, I mean, we'll get there when we get there, but it does just descend into technobabble.
Well, I mean, it's just, I feel like that's also what we get with part 3. It's literally just car repair between part 3 and part 4, which, and so you hope that the whole Zarafin plot line might come into something. But why don't we talk about that now that Nyssa and Tegan are trapped in the sauna?
I'm sad of the lack of wings. That name is so close to Seraphim.
Yeah,
What
I think
are we
that's
doing?
intentional.
I know it's intentional, but
Okay.
I can still dislike it. We already have a very racist character and a lot of problematic things, spouting off a lot of different religious, all these other things earlier in part 2. And then we're coming over here. And not to say that they really did anything super against like angels or anything, but it just feels odd already having a character that's like, I have some questions, and naming a race that when you could have any other name, including the name that they originally gave it.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem sort of deliberate to be using something that sounds biblical.
Yeah, they just want to be a little spicy is what they want to do.
Yeah.
Especially when they don't actually give the Zarafin all that much.
No.
Like, you get a brother's quarrel. And then if you take our powers combined, we can fight off the other friends with the power of friendship.
It does feel like they were trying to go for an ego-id exploration with the 2 of them, but then they just didn't do anything with it. I think that's the one thing I find frustrating about this story, is some of the ideas are good. There are some good concepts here, but they're not well fleshed out, and what there is just isn't that well executed.
Yeah, it feels like the classic situation we've had on the show and all the other previous eras. We should call it like a first halfer, where the setup is fine and the initial premise is good, but due to other reasons, like, as you said in your behind the scenes, shoehorning the Master in here, that cuts back from maybe time with what we could do with the Seraphim, because we have to give that important character a lot of room to grow. Honestly, I think we have too many pilot characters. I think we only need one flight crew. Maybe we could have had the Master kill off the first flight crew. It just seems like after a while, I can't get my British officers and pilot uniforms correct. There's mustache guy. That's the only one I can differentiate between all of them because he had a mustache.
Oh, I get Stapley, the captain of the second Concorde.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Stapley. But otherwise, yes.
Yeah, the Seraphim, that is annoying. And there's potential there. There was.
I also got a little annoyed when our previous story had so many women in it.
Oh.
And this time.
And this one's got one.
Yeah.
And only for a little bit. And she only does so much good. Like, she doesn't have a huge role. And that makes me a little sad. Although it was really interesting. In my headcanon, I was trying to think of, so the one pilot dude, the one with the mustache, is trying to help Angela out. And Angela's like, I don't understand. Why was it so much easier for you? And he said it was because of the doctor. And I was like, I think it's because Roger has a crush on Angela.
I think you might be right.
I'm just going to live in my little headcanon world and have myself a little romance in this story.
So beyond that, the Professor, we talked about how he offers himself up to the Seraphim so they can communicate because he wants the entirety of their knowledge. And you know what happens to him? He dies. What a bell end.
Hey, he might not have. He could have transcended into being one with the Seraphim.
He did, because it was mentioned in part 4.
Yeah, he shows up just wandering around. Yeah.
As one does. I mean, it means that Nyssa didn't die and become one with the Seraphim, so that's nice.
Yeah, though I would have preferred that scene where you see him get absorbed, or we don't know if it's absorbed or just annihilated of some kind of way. That would have been really funny when he like started vibrating with an old British voice saying like, I think this was a bad idea. This actually hurts quite a lot.
All of a sudden it turns into a Monty Python sketch.
Oh.
Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear.
Well, we've talked about that, and we've talked about Tweedledee and Tweedledum of the Seraphim. I think we're getting close to the end of part 3.
I think so too. So we end with the Master perfecting the induction loop, and the Seraphim are transferred to the center of his TARDIS, and the Doctor looks at the camera and says, it means the Master has finally defeated me. And that's our cliffhanger. We're in to part 4.
Yeah. We finally get some time with the Doctor that seems meaningful when we finally get to part 4. Not to say that the Doctor hasn't been doing a lot of things, but I think plot has been moving along because of a lot of other people. And now we finally get some stuff between him and the Master. And some of that is good, but it took 4 episodes to get there.
And at this point, it's been so very heavy in the TARDIS talk and in the esoteric, what is all the psychic shit happening around them. At this point in my, like, see if Diana can follow the plot, it basically says, hopefully everybody else followed this, because I don't actually know what happened. Because it was just so, like, they didn't focus on any one thing. They kept bouncing back and forth between the mechanics and the psychic stuff. And neither one of those things I'm following very easily anyway. And it was too much. I was like, I don't know what time hole who's fallen through and where power is going. And
yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I think I understood a good amount of it, but the problem that I had was that the Master was using the Seraphim as a power source, and that's where it lost the plot for me, because I'm like, I understand them having like the one big unity and all that other stuff. Okay, cool, great. Still wondering how he's siphoning off energy from that. That's where I kind of got stuck.
I'll explain later.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Maybe it was 4, because did you include the one that was, I wish I had time to explain?
Yes, that's definitely, and I'll explain later.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then maybe I am on 4. It took me a while to actually count them, because I didn't put numbers on the first 2, and then I said, oh, is this a third? And then I had another one, so.
And I feel like that leads to the fact that I was feeling so lost was because we haven't had a big number of those. And the fact that they just kept saying, oh, I'll explain it later. I was like, yes, but you need to by the end of episode 4 for me to understand what's going on.
Every fifth word in part 4 is either the expression I'll explain later in one of its forms or them saying Victor Foxtrot.
Yes.
Yes.
Over and over again.
Golly, I was so tired of that. Look, it's Victor Foxtrot. Just say it's the plane. It's the other plane.
I know. I wanted to ask everyone, something occurred in this part that rubbed me the wrong way, and maybe I'm reading it the wrong way, and it's not as bad as it seems. In part 3, the 2 pilots or 2 of the flight crew of one of the Concordes, when they're on one of the TARDISes, I can't remember if it was the Master or the Doctor's, that's how this gets after a while, they mess up some of the parts, so just to throw a spanner in the works, as he explains later. So when the Master mentions that to the Doctor in front of everyone, and the Doctor's all confused, like, what do you mean a technical hitch? And he says, your substitution of the temporal limiter for the time-lapse compressor, da-da-da-da-da-da. And then he, the Doctor, believes it was Nyssa, and he looks like he's about to scold her. And then Captain Stapley, he then's like, oh, actually, that's us. And then all of a sudden the Doctor turns on a dime, and is like, brilliant, so brilliant. What the hell?
So I think, and this is just me trying to make that make sense, because I agree with you, Reilly, on the surface, that's what it looks like in my headcanon, because I did a lot of headcanoning in this one, okay, guys?
The sign of a quality serial.
Yes, but I think with him, with Nyssa, is that he thought that Nyssa was doing it just regularly trying to do maintenance or work on the TARDIS, whereas the captain did it on purpose to mess with the Master.
That is a lot of headcanoning, but okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah, because my opinion is that between those 2 people, the captain or Nyssa, if one of them was going to mistakenly blow everyone up, it would be the captain, not Nyssa. She would know how to booby trap it or sabotage it.
Well, Stapley also mentioned, as he was sabotaging it, I'm pretty sure he mentioned something about having to, tell the Doctor about it before anything.
Yeah, I looked at it more like the Doctor has, except in the last episode, has yet to respond to any of the companions with anything more than a small temper tantrum. And so I think that's just how he responds to his companions right now, is being a little pissy with them.
Mm-hmm.
Charming.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's here that we have this agreement between the Doctor and the Master, basically a part swap agreement, while both are kind of working on both ends. And interspersed amongst this, we have what felt like a How It's Made episode of airplane maintenance, of getting an airplane ready to fly, sponsored by Air France and British Airways. And I was slightly disappointed when we get to the point where they're about to do the handoff, the classic last transfer of a standoff. I thought it would have been wonderful the minute that the exchange took place, that because immediately it turns into a race, they would have immediately just booked it and started running to their respective TARDISes. But instead, they kind of dilly-dally, and then they have a little chit-chat and go. I just felt like it would have been better that way, because when the Doctor does get into the TARDIS, then all of a sudden he seems to be realizing that there's a timer going on. There is an important race happening.
Well, it's an important race, and isn't an important race because the Doctor had purposely messed with the thing so that they would get it there ahead of time.
And I was over there upset, along with the companions, with the fact that there was never any mention of the Xerafen and the fact that the Master is holding them hostage as essentially slave labor.
I mean, at the end, he gets sent off to Zarefas, where he'll be trapped and they'll be able to live happily ever after. So,
will they?
But, okay, he's trapped, but they're still also trapped.
Yeah, right. They're trapped in his TARDIS. How are they getting out?
That's the way the Doctor tells it. Don't blame me for the Doctor being a dick.
But that's a t-shirt.
But hey, Tegan got to be a stewardess or flight attendant, whichever one you want to use, timing and everything.
Stewardess is time appropriate.
Yes.
Now we would say cabin crew.
Yes. So at the beginning, in part 1, she's like, oh, hey, look, it's Heathrow. Isn't that kind of cool? Let's go to the Crystal Palace. And now she's like, maybe I will stay at Heathrow. What, girl? You just changed your mind again?
And then when she does get left behind, she's pretty upset about it.
Oh. No
Woman
pleasing.
doesn't know what she wants.
Yeah. Ugh.
I mean, I think it would be, even if you are convinced that you want to stay on the TARDIS, if the TARDIS, who is classically unable to land where she's supposed to, is finally at a place and you're like, going back to work, it does sound okay. She just went to go have a look around. I don't think she was seriously considering staying. I think she was just being like, oh, look, I'll come back. And then she took too long.
Before we wrap up, because I know Tegan getting left behind is the end of the story, I do want to talk about the flight crew being really smarmy when they get back.
Oh,
Yes.
It's brilliant. Like them saying, well, the Lost Concorde, it's just going to be on the other side of the sewage works. You just need to dig it up. It's right by the temple that you know nothing about.
it's one of those situations where I think the crew got really good parts compared to some others of the story.
All they needed, as they were joking around at the end, the comedy scene where the boss is doubting their story about the TARDIS and us seeing it take off. Just one of them needs to, slap one of the other's asses and the scene's complete.
Or maybe they both tell an inside joke that the administrator doesn't get, and then they all throw their head backs and laugh, and it freeze frames.
I was thinking one of them maybe jumps up,
Ah, yeah.
arm outstretched upwards, and that's the freeze frame.
I could go with that. That would be a better ending than Tegan tear running down the cheek.
Yeah, and so with that brings us to the end of the story. Take a very quick look at some of our running metrics. Now, if a story should have ever been filmed in a quarry, it should have been this one. And it wasn't. Everything outside of Heathrow and Concorde was sadly a studio. So 0 on the quarry query. We have mentioned 4 I'll explain laters, which so far represents 25% of all I'll explain laters we've noticed in the show so far. So epic. There were no jelly babies. And then the camp count. I think the master scenery chewing deserves some points.
Yeah.
Anything else? I mean, I think maybe some of the moustaches as well.
Don't do it to just the mustaches.
No, not the mustaches. I think it's just the master.
2 points for the master?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good. Let's move on to scoring this one. And Diana, you get to go first this time.
So I don't have a lot of feelings about this one, quite honestly. I had a good time in some parts, but it's not one that I'm going to ever super love. Even with the master in it, I love all the master parts. I always love the master. But because I got towards the end and I gave up on understanding the plot, like that's always a big sign that it's not one for me. And as much as I love an old airport setting, there was honestly too much Concorde. Like I know they probably signed a contract for this is how much Concorde shit you need to shove in this episode. It was too much. I honestly could have done without the Concorde because I think that it took away too much from the more interesting parts. And so I wish they really could have expanded what was happening in the Jurassic. Maybe thrown in like one dinosaur. That'd also been really cool. Or talked about the fact that like, oh, we're moments from Adric showing up. But that being said, I give it a 6.5. Death by drowning due to excess mucus.
Diana, a lot of what you say makes sense to me. I agree with you. I think there are some good concepts in this story. There are some good ideas. I think there was also a laundry list that came from John Nathan Turner and Eric Saywood that meant that Grimwade's original vision for this story got diluted. So some great concepts, poor execution. Did enjoy the aircraft crew, particularly of the second Concorde. They're a lot of fun. I did actually like that we still got some grief from Nyssa and Tegan at the beginning of the story over Adric, so a nice little carry on from the previous story. Plasmatons, terrible. I just wish this story had been more. I think maybe if they'd stripped out some of the concepts, talking about how the master wasn't really necessary. I think, Reilly, you brought that one up. Completely agree. It does sort of dilute things a lot. So for me, again, it's not actively terrible, but it's not great either. And so I think for me, this is probably a 6 missing buried under sewage works Concordes out of 10, because I did have fun with it, just as Diana did. Julie, you're next.
I mean, is there much to really disagree with on all of that? There are some good parts. I love the pilot crew. Maybe there's one too many, but that's okay because I still love them anyway. I think there were some good thoughts in here and some good concepts, but I do think the master is very problematic. I'm not particularly fond of the Zeraphins, And I think that this needed a couple of rewrites, some renaming of things, and maybe not as much Arabic mumbo jumbo nonsense that, again, leads to my problematic bits. So I'm going to get it 5.5 soap bubble monster things out of 10.
All right. And then last but very much not least, Reilly, over to you.
Well, the start of the serial was promising, but then the master shows up to bore me, and then we get an alien race plotline with an unsatisfying resolution, and then we end with an advertisement for the Concorde. Despite that, I don't hate it. Nyssa and Tegan get more room to breathe. The sets are fun. Davison is becoming a bit more Doctor-like to me, but he still isn't there yet. If they cut down on the number of pilot characters and just kept Khalid, as I said before, DJ Khalid, this would get a few more points for me. But as it is, I will give it 5. Your Concorde commercial is in my Doctor Who episodes out of 10.
All right. Well, Reilly, that was the lowest of all of us. That gives us a story average of 5.75. There are still 3 stories this season that were worse than that on our averages. So this one's kind of mid for this season. We will be back next time for our season 19 retrospective, where we will do the usual thing, where we'll look back on the entire season with all of our metrics, scores, various award-style categories, and some questions from you guys, our audience. Although by the time you're hearing this, we will have already recorded the episode and already solicited questions. So make sure you check Facebook for when we do season 20, I guess. But in the meantime, as always, thank you so very much for listening. And until next time, have a good one. You have been listening to Watchers in the Fourth Dimension with Diana Burney, Reilly Schreck, Julie Philippek, and myself, Anthony Williams. This episode, An Excessive Dose of Mucinex, was recorded on Monday the 9th of June 2025. If this is your first time listening into the show, all of our previous episodes are available wherever you like to get your podcasts. You can interact with us on Facebook and Instagram at Watchers4D, and you can also email us at watchers4d@gmail.com. If you're enjoying the show, please do subscribe and consider leaving us a review or rating on your favorite podcasting app. All of those things really do help the show. And always remember, sometimes randomly putting on a disguise for no good reason can be fun. I went to the post office last week dressed as Chewbacca. Season 17's City of Beth? No, Season 17's City of Death. So we move on to our short summary, which is with Julie this episode. Over to you, Julie.
Sorry, this dog is going to drive me nuts.
Oh, I thought the sigh was just the short summary.
No.